From a consumer perspective, today is all about consumer rights and raising your awareness. From the Ombudsman's perspective, today is about raising your awareness when it comes to your rights in dealing with government departments. And the key objective for me today is quite simple. I've got two objectives. One is that when you leave today, you'll have a better understanding of what the Ombudsman does. And second, that your pronunciation of the word Ombudsman will be better. And I'm going to start with the easiest, which is your pronunciation of the word Ombudsman. Because let's face it, the name Ombudsman doesn't really tell you who we are or what we do as an organisation. And more often than not, when I say I work for the Ombudsman, people ask me about their banking. And it's not a bad thing, because I come to these events and I see Nikki Sladden, the Banking Ombudsman who spoke earlier this morning, and over the course of 4 or 5 years I've got to understand a lot about what the Banking Ombudsman does. So fortunately I always have an answer prepared for that. The name is an old one and it can be traced back to Sweden. Ombudsman means representative. I read a little bit about it. I wanted to know more. It's been around for hundreds of years. It's about grievance. And if it was a plural, it would be ombudsmanna. And in English, the plural is ombudsmen. And the name applies equally to men and women. So let's give it a go. And you can't be blamed for mispronouncing it, because this is what we've been called. If you were to ever come across Brian Gilling's book, which is the book about the Ombudsman, and he was commissioned to write about it, there is a really good poem at page 40. I know you aren't all going to rush home and have a look at that poem, but there are words in there in addition to this that says things like humbugsman. I didn't want to write that down. I didn't want it in writing, recorded. So who are the Ombudsman? Does anyone know? You don't know? We're important people, you know. Judge?
One of a series of organisations that Ombudsman, and we've dealt with most of those organisations this morning. Except yours.
Yes. So Judge Peter Bosher, he was the former principal family court judge, and Leo Donnelly, who's been in the role of Deputy Ombudsman for probably the last 20 years or so. So let's talk about the Ombudsman's work. And technically speaking, the Ombudsman investigates decisions made by agencies of government. And generally speaking, from a public perspective, these decisions, they relate to government making decisions that affect you every day. What does that mean? Well, government. In the legislation, there's more than 4,000 entities, and I'm, question Douglas as to why I only get this amount of time when we have a jurisdiction of over 4,000 agencies. I'd like that taken into consideration next time you allocate time. Mostly people can talk about 1 or 2 products in your areas of complaints, but I've got 4,000. I just want to, let me show you how that works. In the morning, you get up, let's talk about accommodation, particularly here in Canterbury. You have a house that's subject to repairs in the Canterbury repair program. And I'll just, as a side, EQC complaints from the devastating quakes. We dealt with 2,840 complaints against EQC, and we've closed 2,810, which leaves 30 complicated, complex cases on hand at the moment, and that's taken some time to get through those cases. So you wake up in your home and it's subject to repairs. That's EQC. EQC's government organisation, jurisdiction of the Ombudsman. You may have your breakfast, and you're a consumer. Anything in that area, you have a consumer right. You may have to get children off to school, grandchildren, or anybody to do with schools, school boards of trustees, Ministry of Education, jurisdiction of the Ombudsman. If you happen to be like my husband and who has a back pain and he's grumpy, He has to take a few pills in the morning, so when you have health services, then you know that you have a right to complain to the Health and Disability Commissioner, also subject to the Ombudsman's jurisdiction. You want to get in your vehicle, and your vehicle's registered, and you pay an ACC levy, and that determines how much your registration is, and that is all subject to the Ombudsman's jurisdiction. And perhaps you were a little bit fast coming to the Consumer Rights Day today and received an infringement notice. That's the police, another government agency. And then when you parked up outside just before you came in to listen to everything we have to say today, and you own a small business, where are you? One of our talkers earlier, her husband's an electrician. You pull up, you take a breath, you're about to come in here. Forgot to file GST yesterday, 20th of the month. Inland revenue subject to the Ombudsman's jurisdiction. So there's quite a lot of work that we cover. You don't hear much about the work of the Ombudsman simply because our work is done in private and under secrecy provisions. Secrecy, well, that means that I take an oath of secrecy when I started in the Ombudsman's office, and I will take all the information that comes into my little head to the grave with me. We don't talk about our work. And recently the role, as it's expanded, the Ombudsman's role, particularly into the rights for persons with disabilities and inspecting places of detention, the Ombudsman has gained a lot more attention in the media. Has any, by show of hands, have you seen the judge in the media recently, last month or so? Yeah, places of detention. So that was a person who's been detained, has a mental illness, and was subjected to some breaches which they call the Crimes of Torture Act. So the law prescribes exactly what the Ombudsman can and can't do, and I won't go through every single one of them, but that's there. Largely our work, the pendulum swings from Ombudsman Act, that's the interaction with government every single day for you. Like I went through that scenario, and on the other side the pendulum will swing to Official Information Act. This year's an election year. What happens there? Well, that party over there wants to know what that party over there's got in their policies. And that party over there dilly-dallies around so that they can't get that information in time for putting together policies for the election. And it's the busiest time in our office. Crimes of Torture Act, so that featured in the last media where there was a place of detention. Protected Disclosures Act, very quickly, that's whistleblowing. When you see something seriously wrong in a workplace and you alert through a certain structure, the Chief Executive or our office as to what's going on there. And of course, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. I want to take you through the pipeline. I'm getting worried because my time must be running out. We call it the pipeline because traditionally, as an investigator, as I was back in 2004, a complaint would come in, it would be investigated, and I would see it from the start right through to the end. Depending on the nature of the complaint and who the complaint was against, immigration complaints would last up to 2 years, social services, child, youth and family, work and income, they're probably 3 months, 6 months. So now we have a different way where we want to put, the office is putting more resources to make it efficient into those areas where we've got more work. At the outset, intake and assessment, so that captures all the information electronically. And we have experts at that point to say pre-investigation, investigation, and that gets sent off down the pipeline. 50% of our intake is dealt with by early assistance team. That means that we spend a lot of time on the phones, we might write letters. That stuff does not go any further, it's all very preliminary inquiries. We provide advice, we provide ideas about a strategy. Not often can we answer a lot at that particular point. It's really an explanation about what's going on with the government agency you're complaining about and what the strategies might be that would help you to resolve or get the issue going. If we can get on the phone, we will. If we can call a meeting, we will. If it's through emails, we do it, and that's our early resolution team. And then where it's obvious that there is no resolution in sight, because why? Because you've got a letter from the Chief Executive of the Ministry of Social Development who's very firm about their decision, and there's no possibility that I can get on the phone and say, hey, there must be something wrong with this. Is there something we can do about it? If it's obvious, it goes to an investigation team, and we've got 3. Oh, I didn't put that up there. Auckland, Wellington and Christchurch, so we do have an office here. And then we have what we call a wider administrative improvement team, short we call it Y. Through one investigation or one complaint, it might be the window to see, actually, it affects probably half of the room here. And so they look at a systemic investigation, which is something that affects not just one person, but it affects a lot of people. There must be something wrong with the policy, or there must be something wrong in the way that the government agency is administering it. And then at the base of all of that, we have we think we are the infrastructure of the office, which is where I work in strategic advice, policy, and training and outreach. I should give you a quick example. How much time do I have? 2 minutes. Oh, good, yay. Early resolution. So when I said in that pipeline, before everything that comes in, it's dealt with within 3 months, and where we undertake inquiries, we have communication with perhaps the senior officers in a government department, so just a little bit below the Chief Executive. Things we might see, which are common at that point, is somebody complaining about student loan. They've gone overseas. The debt originally was $3,000, and while they've been away for 5 years, it increases through interest and penalties to $25,000. What can we do? Well, we have to show that the Inland Revenue in administering the law cannot be criticised, because the law is quite clear what they can and can't do, but there might be an aspect about hardship or relief somewhere else. So when you talk to someone in early assistance team, they will help show you a strategy and how you can approach that. Decline visitors' visas, for instance. There's the immigration process, so a lot of the time we might be referring the complainant back to the agency to resolve it. If I can quickly go to a complaint where we've investigated, it was regarding customs. The officers weren't happy with the passenger's passport. It's been reported, this case, if anybody's already seen it. The passport was tattered, and so the customs said to the airliners, I don't think that this person's passport is up to scratch. And so the airliner was nervous, because that means if you take someone over there and the passport doesn't work, you've got to repatriate them to New Zealand. So that person got turned away. He went and got an urgent passport and paid for another ticket, accommodation and so on, and complained to Customs. Customs said, well, we're sorry about your experience, here's $200, go away. And then that complaint came into our office. We looked at it, and in short, the answer was, where are your procedures, Customs? What do you do when you're faced with a passport that looks tattered? Well, the procedure says scan it. If it doesn't read, then it's invalid. And so we went back over it, and was there any evidence it was scanned? No. They didn't follow their own procedure, and consequently the passenger was reimbursed all of the costs incurred. It seems straightforward, doesn't it? No, yeah. I mean, and the person who has to go through it, remember, they've been through this inconvenience, terrible inconvenience. They've suffered distress and humiliation. I don't know if anyone here has been turned away at an airport. Thankfully, I haven't so far. And then you have to go through a complaint process. How long does it take for a complaint to be turned around? 10 days, 20 days? Anxiety, waiting for that letter. And then by the time you get to the Ombudsman's office, it may be 3 months down the track. Questions? Okay. So I'm going to close now. And in summary, I just want to say that the Ombudsman is a person to investigate thousands of decisions made by government departments on a daily basis, and those decisions that affect you and me, and from an advocacy point of view, your clients. It's free. Ombudsman services to access is free. And if you in your community are having difficulties with government agencies, just remember this, that you have a right to be treated fairly by government. When things go wrong, you have a right to complain. And if you're not sure about those rights, you can call our office, because we have investigators who will answer the phone and listen to you and help you work through a strategy. And I imagine after this, you won't have an immediate complaint, but we do have oh, no, that's the wrong one. Maybe that might happen after this. So subscribe to our Ombudsman Quarterly Review. It brings you up to date with what's happening in the office and give you a quick scan of what's going on in government. And have that emailed to you, so when the time comes that you do have to deal with a government agency, that you know you've got an immediate contact or reference point. And I just want to close, which I said I was going to about 2 minutes ago. It is a fact that we are in the business of complaints, and business is booming.